Atomic Habits, a book that has sold 50 million copies worldwide. It's been translated into 50 different languages and is probably the most recommended self help book in the productivity space. Its message is simple, practical, and actually works. The author of the book, James Clear, takes the huge and overwhelming idea of change and packages it into a very small but understandable system. He shows how the smallest of habits, making just 1% of change every day, can absolutely change your life for the better. When I picked up this book personally, I realized these principles aren't just great for fitness or business, but actually they can transform the way that a person memorizes the Quran. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Dawood Islam. I've made it my mission to help make the Quran as easy as possible to memorize. In this video, I'm going to be discussing 3 takeaways that you can take from the book Atomic Habits. Lesson 1: 1% better every day. James Clear begins his book with a very powerful idea. If you can get just 1% better every single day, within a year, you would have been 37 times better than where you started off from. He didn't say 3 times better, he didn't say 10 times better, he didn't even say 20 times better. 37. But does this math actually translate into real life? It sounds crazy, but he brings a story to prove it. He mentions the situation the British cycling team found themselves in the early 2000s. The performance of the team was absolutely terrible. It was so bad, in fact, that a certain French company refused to sell them their bikes. And it wasn't because the British team couldn't afford it, but it was because the company did not want to be associated with losers. Then came a man called David Brailsford. Instead of massive changes, he focused on the small things. He made riders wash their hands specifically to prevent the spread of illness. He used a special type of massaging gel that would help prevent aches and sores. He even went so far as to make sure that every athlete had a specific type of pillow and a specific type of mattress so that they could sleep better. These are very, very minuscule changes. Someone changes their pillow, they don't become an athlete overnight. But the fact of the matter is, those changes compound. By the end of the 2000s, in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British team actually won 64% of all possible gold medals. That actually made them the most successful team in all of history. Small habit changes made them go from the worst, terrible team in history to actually one of the best in all time. I try to bring the same mindset to the Quran now. One of the brothers I'm teaching currently, he recently came to me and said to me, I apologize. He was actually sorry for something. And I asked him, why are you sorry? And he said, Ustad, I only memorized 1.5 page this week. Initially, I had actually asked him to do 3. I actually ended up telling him there's no need to apologize. And you may ask why. The fact of the matter is, I was actually working with him in creating better habits. Every day, he would spend an hour in the morning with me in the Barakah Block, where we would sit in a Zoom from about 6:30 to 9. And he would spend about an hour every day, and he actually kept this consistently for a long time. He would come every day and recite and memorize. At first, it was difficult. Sometimes he would come a bit late. And if he did come on time, sometimes he'd be yawning, a bit distracted, looking around. But I kept reminding him of the principle 1% every day. Within a few weeks, 1 page of memorization became his new norm. He no longer had to spend all of his mental energy trying to wake up in the morning after Fajr and spend that time reciting. It became normal and easy for him. When that became easy for him, it was only a matter of time when he could focus properly in that time. When he was able to focus properly, it only took a certain amount of time before that also became his new norm and he could actually memorize more. And now, when 1 page is his new norm, actually, we can push it even further. One of my students, actually, in the last 3 weeks, has memorized 35 pages. 35 pages is actually 35 pages is almost 2 ajza. Now, 2 ajza of the Quran sounds like a whole big portion, but if you were to break it down daily, that's only 1.5 pages every day. That same brother is now trying to push himself to do 2 pages a day, and is inshallah set to complete his Hifdh very soon. So remember, lesson 1: 1% better every single day. Start out small. Maybe you do 20 minutes of Quran every day, but every single day you need to improve that a little bit by a little bit. Lesson 2: systems and not goals. Here's an amazing quote from the book. You do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems. Think about it. Many of us have the same goals. Every Muslim who starts their Hifdh wants to eventually become a Hafidh, but how many of them actually manage to do that? Everyone has the same goal, but it's not actually the goal that separates the successful one and the unsuccessful one. If your goal is to memorize the Quran, then the focus shouldn't be on the goal itself. Rather, you should be building systems that make that goal automatic. What do I mean by that? Maybe you join a community that forces you to stay consistent with the Quran every single day. Maybe you invest a certain amount of money into that community so that there's a certain sense of loss when you don't actually attend the community sessions. Maybe you attend scheduled mornings after Fajr, and in those sessions you see everyone else reciting, and of course you'd never want to be the one left behind. Maybe in this morning session you keep your camera on and your mics off. That way you're forced to stay off your phone and not get distracted by anything else. Maybe you also have a coach who checks up on you regularly. Maybe you can even compete in leaderboards so that you have motivation to keep going. It would be amazing if something like that actually existed. Thus, rather than just saying, I'm going to become a Hafidh, you say, I'm going to do this thing every day and I'm going to do that thing every week. And eventually, by doing that same thing again and again and again and again, you will eventually reach your goal. Lesson 3: Identity and Beliefs. This is also related to the building of systems. The way you build your system has to be very much related to your identity and your beliefs. Again, like we've already said, goals are not the focus. The strongest habits that people actually build are related not to outcomes, but to who they are themselves. Clear actually brings another example here. He gives the example of a nail biter. If someone says, I'm trying to stop biting my nails, they may succeed for a little while, but just by the goal itself is very fragile. But if someone says, I'm the type of person who takes care of my hands, now we have an identity shift. Habits stick far more to when they are tied to who you actually are as a person. And habits actually are also linked very much with your beliefs. You have certain beliefs about yourself. I'm not a morning person. I'm not practicing. I'm not a runner. And that belief is actually built up of proof. A person who has prayed in the masjid for the last 20 years, all of their salawat, all five of them, they are more likely to believe that I'm actually a practicing person. I'm a person who fears Allah. And that is, of course, in comparison to the person who doesn't pray at all. The same thing happens with the Quran. If you open your Mus'haf every single day, you're more likely to say to yourself, I'm a memorizer. And the more evidence that stacks up, the more evident it becomes in your life, the more natural it is for you to believe that I can actually do this. This also means you should not limit yourself with personal beliefs. A person who says, I'm not a morning person, hasn't actually really given themselves the chance to prove to themselves that they are a morning person, or actually not. Have you actually tried to wake up for the last month or 2 months at 6 o'clock in the morning and actually tried to sit with the Quran? If you haven't, you can't say that I'm not a morning person. Often, habits take a long time to show. Think of the metaphor of someone who's trying to open a jar. A husband, he's been trying for 100 times to open a jar, and the wife comes once and pops it open. We, of course, assume the best of the husband and that he's not weak, but we say that the jar only opened because of those 100 times he actually tried. We therefore have to make identity based changes. Don't just say, I'll memorize the Quran, but think to yourself, I'm going to be a Hafiz. But what does a Hafiz do every single day? And that has to be my habit now. The answer is very simple. They recite Quran daily for years. They recite so much that it flows off the tongue naturally and easily, as if how, for example, you recite Surah Fatiha. If you take on the habits of a Hafiz and the identity of the Hafiz, you then can be able to prove to yourself that you are a Hafiz. Thus, it only takes a matter of time before you become one. Applying these three lessons: 1% daily growth, strong systems, and identity based change can make you, inshallah, a very, very strong Hafiz. In reality, strong Hifz is built on stability. You are not a sprinter, but a marathon runner. We don't need emotional bursts of motivation, but steady and maintained consistency. So here's my advice. Stop obsessing over the huge mountain of becoming a Hafiz. Focus on building the small habits daily that prove to yourself that you can become a Hafiz. It's those small wins every single day that brings that kind of belief in yourself. You must build systems that make it automatic. You will automatically become a Hafiz if you do this every single day. Now, tie those systems to your identity. You are a person who memorizes the Quran. Apply these and watch how over time you transform your life. If you'd like me to do more of these types of videos where I break down very famous popular books and bring it back and relate it to how it can benefit you in your Hifz journey, put some titles in the comments, inshallah. I'll be glad to take any type of feedback.